You check your banking app on a Tuesday afternoon. You're not really expecting to see anything different. You know exactly what it's going to say because you checked it yesterday, and the day before that, and probably 3 times on Saturday when you were bored in the grocery store parking lot. You open the app, the little loading circle spins, and there it is. That same frustratingly small number. You've been working for years. You've been putting in the hours, paying your bills on time, maybe even throwing a random 20 or 50 bucks into your savings account when you remember to do it. But when you look at that total balance, it just feels like you're running on a treadmill. You're breathing hard, you're exhausted, but you haven't actually moved an inch. And honestly, it starts to mess with your head after a while. You start looking at other people, friends who are buying houses, or taking luxury vacations, or posting about their new cars, and you wonder what secret math equation they were taught that you somehow missed. My name is Zach, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people seem to effortlessly build wealth while others stay stuck in the same financial patterns for decades. And the more I dig into this stuff, the more I realize that getting to that first major milestone, specifically that first $50,000, isn't about some secret investment strategy or winning the genetic lottery. It's about a massive, invisible psychological shift that happens in your brain, and until you understand how that shift works, you're basically just pushing a boulder up a hill every single day and watching it roll back down. $50,000 is a really weird number in the personal finance space. If you listen to the hardcore finance gurus, they'll kind of scoff at 50,000. They'll say, "Oh, 50K is nothing, you need $1 million to retire, stop celebrating pocket change." But out here in the real world, $50,000 is everything. It's the dividing line between being completely at the mercy of your next paycheck and actually having a margin of error in your life. But getting there, it is so much harder than anyone makes it out to be, and the reason why is rarely about how much money you actually make. I want to talk about why that first 50,000 feels like you're trying to walk through wet concrete. And more importantly, how to actually get through it, because the strategies you use to go from 0 to 50 are completely different from the strategies you'll use to go from 50 to 500. To understand why the beginning is so painfully slow, we have to talk about the math of momentum. And I know, nobody wants to hear about math, but stick with me for a second because this is actually the thing that will make you stop feeling crazy. When you have exactly $0 in the bank, your money has 0 employees. Think of every single dollar you save as a worker you just hired. When you have 0 workers, who is out there generating more money for you while you sleep? Nobody. You are the only one showing up to the job. You're doing all the heavy lifting. Let's say you manage to scrape together $5,000. You put it in a high-yield savings account, or maybe a basic index fund. At a conservative 5% interest rate, that $5,000 is going to make you $250 over the course of a year. $250. That's like, what, a couple of trips to the grocery store? It feels entirely invisible. It feels meaningless. And that's exactly why most people quit right here. Your brain looks at the effort it took to save $5,000, and then it looks at the $250 it magically spawned, and your brain basically says, "Are you kidding me? This is a waste of time. I could make that in 1 extra shift at work. Let's just buy the shoes." My name is Zach, and I spend way too much time thinking about money and why people make the financial decisions they do. And I've realized that this early stage of saving isn't actually a math problem. It is a pure, brutal psychological endurance test. You are saving purely on willpower, and human willpower is a notoriously terrible long-term strategy. Compare that to what happens later. Once you finally hit that $50,000 mark, your money has an army. $50,000 at a 5% return generates $2,500 a year. That's over $200 a month. Now your money is paying for your groceries. It's paying your electric bill. You start to feel a little spark of relief. But to get there, you have to survive the dead zone. You have to endure years where your savings account grows by what feels like pennies a day, while the world is screaming at you to buy a newer phone or upgrade your apartment. So how do you actually survive this phase and push through to that $50,000 mark? The first thing you have to do is completely change how you view your income. Most people treat their salary like a daily allowance. They get paid on Friday, and by Sunday night, they've already mentally allocated where every single dollar is going to go for the next 2 weeks. The rent, the utilities, the car payment, the food, the subscriptions, and oh look, there's $80 left over, let's go out to dinner. You have to flip the script. You have to treat your savings goal as your actual, non-negotiable landlord. And I don't mean just waiting until the end of the month to see what's left. Because we both know what happens at the end of the month. Nothing is left. Money is incredibly slippery. It finds its way into gaps you didn't even know existed. You need to pay yourself first, which is a cliché at this point, but honestly, it's a cliché because it is the only mechanical way this actually works. When your paycheck hits, before you pay the electric company, before you pay the internet provider, before you even look at your grocery list, you have to siphon off a chunk of money and move it to a completely separate account. An account that doesn't have a debit card attached to it. An account that is slightly annoying to log into. You need to make spending your own money feel like a minor inconvenience. If you have to wait 2 days for a transfer to clear to buy something stupid, you'd be amazed at how many stupid things you just decide you don't actually need. But let's get into the actual tactical breakdown, because saying, just save money, is useless advice. How do you find the money when you feel like you're already barely treading water? You have to go through your life with a microscope and identify what I call the invisible leaks. A few years ago, I was sitting at my kitchen table looking at my credit card statement, and I was genuinely confused. I wasn't living a lavish lifestyle. I wasn't buying designer clothes or flying to Europe. I was eating at home most nights, driving a completely average car, living in a normal apartment. But my money was just evaporating. So I went line by line through 3 months of spending. And what I found was genuinely shocking to me. It wasn't the big things ruining me. It was the $10 slices of pizza when I was too lazy to cook. It was the $15 monthly subscription to an app one used twice in 6 months. It was the $25 impulse buys on Amazon at 11 o'clock at night when I was bored and scrolling. Individually, none of these purchases moved the needle on my life. Not a single one of them made me happier for more than 24 hours. But collectively, they were stealing hundreds of dollars a month from my future $50,000. When you are trying to build that foundational wealth, you have to become aggressively aware of these microleaks. I'm not saying you have to live in a cardboard box and eat rice and beans. Honestly, that kind of extreme deprivation usually leads to a massive blowout spending spree anyway. But you do have to become intentional. You have to look at a $10 purchase and ask yourself, is this worth delaying my financial freedom by a day? Is this worth pushing that $50K milestone back another week? Once you plug the leaks, you have to address the other massive anchor holding you back, lifestyle inflation. This is the silent killer of wealth building, especially in your 20s and 30s. You finally graduate, you get your first real job making $40,000 a year, and you feel rich. You upgrade from the tiny shared apartment to your own place. You buy a slightly nicer car. You start buying the name brand groceries instead of the generic stuff. And then, 2 years later, you get a raise to $55,000. And what do? You upgrade your apartment again. You start going to nicer restaurants. Your income goes up, but your expenses magically rise to meet it perfectly, leaving you with the exact same $200 of breathing room at the end of the month that you had when you were broke. It's insane. It is a trap that almost everyone falls into because we are socially conditioned to believe that making more money means we should live a nicer life immediately. To get to that first $50K, you have to practice something that feels incredibly unnatural: defensive earning. You have to pretend you didn't get the raise. If you were living perfectly fine on $40,000 and you get bumped to $55,000, take that extra $15,000 and put it directly into your wealth building account. Don't change your grocery store. Don't upgrade your car. Keep driving the old one. Keep living like you make 40 grand and pour the rest into your future. If you do this every time you get a raise over a 5 or 6 year period, you will blast past $50,000 without feeling like you sacrificed anything, because you never actually got used to having that extra money in your monthly budget to begin with. Now, I want to take a quick aside here because I know some of you are watching this and thinking, Zach, this is great, but you don't understand my situation. I don't make enough money to save. I am barely surviving. And I genuinely empathize with that. If you are making minimum wage and rent in your city is astronomical, the math is brutally hard. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it isn't. But even in those situations, you still have to play the long game, which brings me to the most overlooked lever you have: your ability to increase your income. When you have zero wealth, your primary asset isn't your savings account. It is your time and your energy. And you have to be ruthlessly strategic about how you monetize that. If you are stuck at $35,000 a year, saving 10% of your income is going to get you to $50,000 in savings well, do the math, it's going to take forever. You will lose your mind waiting for compound interest to do its thing on $300 a month. You have to focus on increasing the top line. This might mean taking a boring certification course on the weekends for 6 months to make yourself more valuable at your job. It might mean taking a second job for a year and dedicating 100% of that second income strictly to hitting that $50K milestone. It might mean learning a high-income skill like copywriting, or video editing, or basic coding, and doing freelance work on the side. People drastically overestimate how hard it is to make an extra $500 to $1,000 a month outside of their main job, and they drastically underestimate how much that extra $1,000 a month changes the timeline to $50,000. If you can find a way to make just an extra $1,000 a month and immediately shovel it into savings, you will hit $50K in just over 4 years, assuming you start from zero. That is life-changing speed in the wealth-building world. But as you're doing this, as you're working the extra hours, as you're saying no to going out to the bar with your friends, as you're driving your old car, something really strange is going to start happening in your brain. And this is the part that nobody really talks about. You are going to start experiencing a profound identity shift. When you don't have any money, your identity is tied to survival. You are living paycheck to paycheck, and your entire mental bandwidth is consumed by making sure you don't overdraw your checking account. It's a low-level, constant anxiety that you get so used to, you don't even realize it's there anymore. It's just the background noise of your life. But as you start watching your savings account creep up to $10,000, then $20,000, then $30,000, that noise starts to fade. And it gets replaced by something else. You start to feel a sense of control. You realize that if your car breaks down, it's an annoyance, not a catastrophic financial crisis. If you hate your boss, you realize you actually have the option to quit and find something else because you have a runway. You have a cushion. You have options. That first $50,000 doesn't just buy you a bunch of stuff. It buys you a completely different version of yourself. It buys you peace of mind. And honestly, once you feel that, you become almost obsessed with protecting it. You look at people who are spending every dime they make on depreciating assets, and you don't feel jealous anymore. You feel a weird mix of empathy and relief that you aren't playing that game anymore. You've leveled up your psychology. Let's talk about where this money should actually live while you're building it, because this is another area where people trip over their own feet. When you are trying to accumulate that first $50,000, you should not be trying to pick individual stocks. You should not be buying crypto because your friend told you about a coin that's going to the moon. You should not be trying to be a day trader. Your goal at this stage is not yield. Your goal is capital preservation and momentum. You need this money to be safe, liquid, and boring. Put it in a high-yield savings account. Yes, the interest rate might fluctuate, but it's safe. If you want to be slightly more aggressive but still keep it simple, put it into a broad, low-cost S&P 500 index fund inside a Roth IRA, assuming you understand that the market goes up and down and you won't panic sell if it drops 10% next month. But please, for the love of everything, do not try to get rich quick with this money. This $50,000 is your foundation. It's the concrete slab your entire financial house is going to be built on. If you try to get cute and gamble it on some speculative meme stock, you're going to wipe out years of discipline in a single afternoon, and the psychological damage of that will make it 10 times harder to start over. Keep it boring. Boring is beautiful when you are building a foundation. There's also a really important emotional milestone that happens right around the $25,000 to $30,000 mark that I want to warn you about. It's called the Valley of Frustration. You've been grinding for a couple of years. You've been saying no to things. You've been watching your friends live it up on social media. And you look at your account, and you see $28,000. You're more than halfway there, but you still feel broke. You still can't buy a house. You still can't really retire. You're in this weird middle ground where you have too much money to be careless, but not nearly enough money to feel truly wealthy. This is where the dark voice in your head starts whispering. It says things like, "What's the point? You're missing out on your youth. You could die tomorrow, just buy the nice car." I've seen so many people self-sabotage right at this exact spot. They get scared that they're sacrificing their life for a number on a screen, so they blow 20 grand on a down payment for a vehicle that loses value the second they drive it off the lot, and they're right back to square one. When you hit that valley, you have to zoom out. You have to remind yourself why you started this in the first place. Pull up a compound interest calculator. Look at what $28,000 does over 10, 15, 20 years if you just leave it alone. Realize that the hardest money you will ever make in your entire life is the money it takes to get from 0 to 50K. Every dollar after that gets exponentially easier because of the mathematical momentum we talked about earlier. You are laying the bricks. It's tedious, it's unglamorous, but you cannot skip the bricks. And let's be real about the social friction this causes, because it will. When you start taking your money seriously, you become a bit of an outlier in your friend group. If your friends are used to going out to expensive dinners 3 times a week, and you start saying, "Hey, I'm just going to grab a burger at home tonight, you guys go ahead," they are going to notice. Some of them will be supportive, but some of them might give you a hard time. They'll call you cheap. They'll say you're being boring. They'll say, "You only live once." You have to develop a thick skin for this. You don't have to be a jerk about it. You don't have to lecture them about compound interest over drinks. Please don't be that person. You can just say, "Nah, I'm just trying to save up a bit right now," and leave it at that. But internally, you have to hold your ground. You have to realize that when they pressure you to spend money you don't want to spend, they aren't doing it maliciously. They're just doing it because it validates their own financial choices. If everyone around them is spending recklessly, they feel better about their own reckless spending. When you opt out, it holds up a mirror to their behavior, and it makes them uncomfortable. Let them be uncomfortable. Your future self is counting on you to be okay with a little bit of temporary social awkwardness. As you get closer to that $50,000 mark, something fascinating starts to happen. The momentum actually begins to shift. Remember how we talked about those first $5,000 only making you a couple $100 a year? Well, when you hit $40,000 in your account, that money is generating $2,000 a year in interest. That's $166 a month. Do you see what's happening? Your money is starting to do some of the heavy lifting for you. You are getting a raise from your money without having to ask your boss for a single thing. When you combine that growing interest with your continued deposits, the curve on the graph starts to bend upwards. The last $10,000 you save to hit 50K will go significantly faster than the first $10,000. It's a beautiful mathematical reward for your patience. And then, one random Tuesday afternoon, you'll open your banking app. The little loading circle will spin. And the number staring back at you will have a 5 followed by 4 zeros. You hit $50,000. I want to tell you what that moment actually feels like, because it's not what you see in the movies. You probably aren't going to scream or jump out of your chair. It's actually much quieter than that. It's this deep, settling sensation in your chest. It's a profound sense of relief. You realize that you have proven to yourself, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you are capable of delaying gratification. You are capable of controlling your impulses. You have successfully built a wall between yourself and financial ruin. You're still not a millionaire. You still have to go to work on Monday. But the nature of your relationship with work has fundamentally changed. You are no longer working because if you don't, you'll be homeless in 2 weeks. You are working because you are choosing to build an even bigger life. That psychological shift is worth far more than the $50,000 itself. So, let's bring this all back down to earth. If you are sitting there right now with a low balance, feeling like that $50,000 milestone is a mountain you'll never climb, I need you to take a breath and reset your perspective. Stop looking at the top of the mountain. It will paralyze you. Just look at the next step. Automate a transfer. Even if it's just $50 a paycheck. Plug one invisible leak in your spending today. Start looking for one small way to increase your income by a few $100s a month. The path to $50,000 isn't a secret algorithm. It is a relentless, boring, disciplined series of small, correct decisions made over a period of years. It's surviving the dead zone where your money has no employees. It's ignoring the people who tell you that you're missing out on life. It's keeping your lifestyle expenses flat while your income slowly rises. You have to be the one to give your money its first job. You have to be the one to hire those early dollars, even when they seem completely useless and unproductive. Because one day, those first few dollars are going to hire more dollars, and those dollars are going to hire even more, and eventually, you're going to wake up and realize you aren't pushing the boulder up the hill anymore. The boulder is rolling on its own. Getting to that first 50K is the hardest thing you will ever do in personal finance. But I promise you, the person you become on the other side of that milestone, someone who is calm, intentional, secure, and free from the anxiety of living on the edge, that person is worth every single sacrificed latte, every weekend side hustle, and every awkward time you said no to going out. You can do this. Start today. Hire your first dollar, and don't stop until the army is built.